Hey everybody, it is Monday morning and we are going to continue my saga of the Angelfish Shuffle. So my most recent video where I put the two angelfish back in this tank, I left you all with my green giant here, sort of tentatively interacting with my mixed veil, the sort of brown natural looking one. And we had all left with good hopes that everybody was going to get along just fine and the tank was going to be good and so on and so forth. Well, those hopes were dashed about 5 minutes after I stopped shooting the video. My green giant here started getting aggressive and it just got more and more aggressive, and so I wound up having to make one more change that I think is going to be the final change. I was a little reluctant to do it at first, and you'll see why in a minute, but I'm really glad I did it. It actually, I think, is going to turn out quite well. The only thing I'm a little disappointed in is the final placement of this one and my German blue. So my German blue is now over in the 20-gallon tank that's right at the doorway as you come in. And then this green giant is over in this tank, as you can see. But I really think the green giant looked better in that other tank. I've got that Cree LED shining down on that tank. It's open top. And it just lit this fish up amazing. It looked beautiful under that light. It doesn't look bad under this light, obviously, but it's not the same. This is just a regular old LED shop light, and while it's nice and bright, it doesn't have a super high quality amount of light on it. The light you're seeing right now, the reason that fish is looking so good is because you're seeing the external light. If you see all the shadows here, that's from the light behind us, and that's actually what's making that angelfish look as good as it does. If I turn that light off, that would look a lot less vibrant. It would still be brightly lit, it just wouldn't be that colorful. You wouldn't see that green or blue or whatever you want to call that color, that sort of turquoise teal color. It just would not be lighting up like that. So anyway, what I finally ultimately wound up deciding to do is that. Now, you can see I was reluctant because this is my, quote, native tank. But ultimately, I've got a pleco in here, I've got a West African tilapia in here, and I used to have a Chinese algae eater in here. So this has never been truly a native tank. And really, how far are we stretching it? I mean, it's, you know, it's not a native North American, but the angelfish in there is definitely a native South American fish. So we're not too far off geographically. The angelfish certainly belongs in this tank much more so than the West African tilapia belongs in here, and yet I've had that tilapia in this tank for quite a long time. So after putting it in there, you know, I just saw it in there and thought, yep, that's it. It looks perfect. It looks beautiful in there. And now I'm halfway tempted to go out and get 4 or 5 more of the, you know, not the fancy kind, like the pretty colors and stuff that I like to get, but I really do like these basic, almost wild type angelfish as well. I really think they're pretty fish, just in general. And so I'm half tempted to go out and get 4 or 5 little ones to put in the tank and have them all sort of grow out together and have a nice little group of them in this tank. But I assume I will be running into the same problems, you know, that I'm just dealing with. If I start with a whole group of fish in this tank, they'll grow up and get too big, and then they'll start arguing, and we won't have a nice happy community full of fish anymore. So there you go, just a quick little update. I guess we can walk around this way. Haven't even got the lights in the room turned on yet. Let me come over here. I got the one plug strip here, and that lights everybody up. So this tank now has my German blue in it. And while it doesn't look bad in there, it doesn't light up like that green giant did when it was in here. And so I might make one final switch and move the green giant back into this tank and put my German blue back in the original 55 we were just looking at. I don't know, we'll see. I feel like kind of guilty about swapping these fish around over and over and over again. I also took my fish out of quarantine. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet or not, but my 3 platinum guppies all survived quarantine just fine, and they are now in this tank. And then my 3 new blue guppies that you can see right there have made it out of quarantine just fine and are now in this tank, and I'm really enjoying them in here too. It was kind of a spur of the moment whim that they weren't really intended to go in this tank when I purchased them. But after putting them in here, I'm really glad I did, because once again, I can see this tank from the other room, and looking in, looking in the doorway or whatever, I just see those little splashes of color swimming around. It's nice. So there you go. That is the latest on my angelfish. We'll see if this one doesn't stay here or my green giant doesn't come back over here. I'm leaning towards bringing my green giant back over here. Angelfish are like the easiest fish in the world to catch, except possibly guppies that'll actually just swim right in the net to see what's going on. Angelfish are super easy to catch, so it's not a big deal for me to move them around. People talk about, oh, why don't you just put your gourami in? You ever tried to catch a gourami in a heavily planted 55-gallon tank? Good luck with that. Maybe you set a trap or something out, or if you've got the afternoon to patiently wait to try to catch it, it is a pain in the butt. Pulling an angelfish out and swapping it into another tank or whatever, that's easy peasy. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Like I said, at this point, the only thing preventing me from doing it is just kind of feeling guilty from swapping them all around. I just feel like I'm kind of being mean to them at this point. So anyway, make sure you subscribe. That way you won't miss anything I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. Hey, everybody. Just enjoying my angelfish in his new home here. I've shot a series of videos recently where I've been doing what I call the angelfish shuffle. I've been having issues with aggression. I've been moving fish around from tank to tank. And last night, I ended up with this fish in a tank with another angelfish that I thought was going to be okay. And it just did not last very long at all. And I wound up having to move my angelfish over here into my native tank. So while this tank wouldn't typically be one I would ever have thought about putting an angelfish in before, I'm really glad I did. It just looks absolutely fantastic in here. It goes with the color scheme and the feel and the theme and everything else. I already shot a video about this morning going over it, but as I walked back into the room, I just saw the angelfish kind of hiding in that piece of wood. And that hollow in that piece of wood was actually one of the reasons I put that wood in there. I couldn't wait to see fish moving around in it. The fact that this angelfish was the first fish that I've really gotten a good look at just kind of hanging out in there like it's a cave is even better. So I'm not sure if it's going to go hide. But I will probably be getting more video of this fish coming up here in the very near future, just so we can all get a good look at it interacting with all the minnows in this tank. And just in a generalized sort of way, I think it just looks fantastic in here. I'm really, really happy with it. So it's getting down into the tilapia's territory at this point, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not it gets along with the tilapia. There's the tilapia moving down at the bottom of the tank now. One other note I will make about this tank is I did a big water change yesterday, and while doing so, I noticed that the water seemed really cold to me. And so I got my thermometer out and checked, and it was only about 72 degrees. And so this is an unheated tank, being that it's got all native fish in it. And yet my tilapia and the pleco that are in this tank have always been okay. I've never really worried about them, and I don't know why. I've never really considered this tank to be a lower temperature tank. You can see the tail of my pleco sticking out right there. But now that I've got that angelfish in the tank, I'm suddenly concerned about whether or not it's going to be too low of a temperature for an angelfish to stay healthy. So I did order a big 300-watt heater for the tank, and that'll be here either today or tomorrow. I can't remember whether it was the 1-day or 2-day delivery, but it'll either be here today or tomorrow. And I will be able to... All right, now we're going to see some action, maybe. That is really interesting. I expected that tilapia to be the only fish in this tank I was concerned about there being a possible issue was with that tilapia, because they're both cichlids. That tilapia gets aggressive even when the minnows come down to this end of the tank. It tends to chase them away. And when the pleco gets down here, when I used to have the Chinese algae eater in this tank, any fish that got down towards, I guess you could call that the nesting site of that tilapia, you can see how the rocks and everything are all cleared out in the bottom corner. It spends a lot of time in there keeping that corner cleared out. And any fish that gets down there usually gets chased away. Now, that's not to say the tilapia won't go out and hang out with the other fish at the other end of the tank. It's just that the tilapia doesn't want anybody hanging out in his house. So, if they come down here, he chases them away. And the fact that that angelfish is just sitting there hanging out, and the tilapia clearly knows it's there, came up and investigated, and is just leaving it alone, really surprises me. So who knows, maybe when the water gets a little bit warmer, I get the heater in there either later today or tomorrow, and maybe if the tilapia makes friends, so to speak, with the angelfish, maybe we'll get to see the tilapia coming out more, because while they taste terrible, they look amazing. Tilapias are awesome looking fish, especially when you get to see them under good light. You get all that red and white in them. They're just amazing looking. So let's hope we get to see a little more of it. But I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I don't think we're going to get to see a lot more activity. That's one of the things angelfish are not known for, is being a really active fish. So there you go. The angelfish in my new look of my 125 native tank here. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss anything I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be. It might be fireworks between a tilapia and an angelfish. So I'm going to give it another moment here and see what happens with these two being so close together. I'm really, really surprised about this. I fully expected that tilapia to be aggressive towards that angelfish. Interesting. Alright, well, this is not a guarantee. I've shown you video before of fish that seemed like they were getting along, only to find out a couple hours later that that was not the case. So hopefully we will be able to keep these two together without any issues. So far so good. Alright everybody, as I said, make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss anything I got coming up. And then don't forget, of course, this is still my 125 gallon native tank. So thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.